Building a stronger financial foundation? Good plan. Northwestern Mutual's Guide to Good Financial Planning can help you balance spending and saving, set goals, and start creating the life you want to be living. You'll learn how the tools in your financial plan reinforce each other to help you minimize taxes and offset potential risks. Grow your confidence by strengthening your finances today at northwesternmutual.com/goodplan. The Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Have you heard about T-Mobile Home Internet Lite? Yes, Internet Lite. Someone actually thought making light internet was a good idea. What does Internet Lite mean? It means it's internet, but not full-on internet. It means when you hit your allotted data, you get throttled to dial up like speeds from the 90s. And that means you can be downloading a video game and boom, you get throttled. Nobody wants that. You want strong, fast, reliable internet. You want Xfinity. Learn more at xfinity.com/TMOFAX.
A note to listeners. The following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
I had evidence that when he talked to Colt on the phone that morning, Colt told him he was in a creek with a broken leg because there's an affidavit from Joe Russell saying Conn knew he was in a creek with a broken leg. At that point, it's negligent homicide at best.
Feeling, and he said that one day somebody was going to go fishing in a pond on Genotry Road and pull up a hand that there was two young people that was put in a tin box and put in a pond.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman.
Search warrant is pending in Love County. Investigators hope it could hold the answers to where Molly Miller and Colt Haynes are and have been for the past 8 years. News 12's Emily Tabar spoke with a private investigator on the case. Where are they trying to search, Emily?
Jen, private investigator Philip Klein says a probable cause affidavit was submitted to the judge today for a property on Pike Road in the county. It's close to where Molly and Colt were last seen alive, but part of it was never searched.
It's time to bring this to an end. It's time to bring Molly and Colt home.
Klein Investigations was hired by Molly Miller's family 7 years ago, a year after they went missing. Monday afternoon, they announced a search warrant was pending for a property on Lane Road, near where Miller and Colt Haynes were last seen.
It's one little area that, to be honest with you, we were told had been searched, but had not been searched. We were within 600 yards when we did the dig about 2-3 years ago.
Klein says a couple years ago, all of the case's investigators and law enforcement agencies combined their findings to submit this search warrant.
They have been able to put together a very good timeline. They've done a great job out there. I mean, I can't tell you how exciting it is when you get everybody working together.
The FBI opened their case this year on the 7th anniversary of their disappearance.
We think the general public needs to know, hey, we're still working on this, and B, this is a huge break.
Right now, Klein won't give an update on James Conn Nipp, the man allegedly last seen with Miller and Haynes, in fear of affecting the integrity of the case.
There are some other things that are involved in the search warrant that you can read about when it's released, if or when the judge signs it, and if or when the district attorney accepts it from law enforcement, which I believe he will. I believe he'll do it.
It's taken years of hard work and teamwork to get to this point, and Klein knows it's only the beginning.
I just pray that this brings 7 years of hell to a close and calm. And now let's prosecute the people that did this.
Unfortunately, a judge denied that search warrant on November 30th, 2021.
When Sheriff Joe Russell was arrested and forced to resign from Love County Sheriff's Department in 2016, Marty Grisham became the sheriff, and he promised he would do whatever he could to help find Molly and Colt. But the investigation continued to stall.
In 2020, Marty hired Jackie Bates, a former law enforcement officer from outside of Love County. Jackie's sole purpose was to reinvestigate all of the evidence in Molly and Colt's case, looking for clues that might have been missed.
Jackie is actually the one that prepared that search warrant.
And it's confusing to us why a judge would deny it. But Jackie has agreed to speak with us, so let's give him a call.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Jackie. How are you?
Hey, how y'all?
I'm okay. My husband Rob is here too.
Hey, Jackie, how are you?
Hey, Rob.
How are you? How you been?
Pretty good.
Good.
That's good. So I just wanted to catch up with you from the last time that we spoke. You told us that you were going to go try to get a search warrant for that area that you wanted to search for Molly and Colt. Can you kind of get us up to date on what's happened since then?
Yeah, I filed a search warrant. Thought it was pretty good. Did we send you a copy of that?
No. The search warrant? No.
Yeah, I should send you a copy of the search warrant. Anyway, the DA said, well, I think you have probable cause that they might be there. But he was afraid digging in a creek might create an erosion problem. He's afraid the county would get sued. It was kind of interesting, though, because when he asked the sheriff, Marty, he said, the county could get sued. Aren't you worried about that? And Marty was like, no, this has to be done. I was so proud of him.
Mm-hmm.
But the DA still, between that and the judge, I could never get a search warrant. And the landowner, he didn't really want us. I don't think he was worried about erosion because we could have made the creek better, but because it's not that big a creek.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't want the exposure.
Mm-hmm.
He's building a house out there. He's retiring. He don't want people around. Of course, my viewpoint is, well, the people that live behind you could be murderers. They might not be, but the evidence is in your backyard.
Yeah.
I would want to know.
Yeah.
That seems like it's a really kind of weird technicality about erosion on.
It's ridiculous. It's kind of like doing no-knock search warrants and search warrants in general. There's liability to it always. Look at the news. When you break down a door and go in someone's home, there's some liability. But what liability is they're digging in dirt?
Yeah.
You're just being paranoid about it.
Well,
I need
also,
to send you because the search warrant outlines some of the evidence, not all of it,
mm-hmm.
but enough to create, I would say, probable cause that they're there. I didn't use probable cause of a crime because, there could be a crime. There might, evidence would, if you just look at everything that's out there, one would say there's a possible homicide here. There's plenty of talk that there's a homicide. And the fact that my investigation led me that I don't know if they're both there, but there's human remains in the creek. I would bet if Colt fell in that creek, and he was murdered, I think he was left there.
Yeah.
Now, Molly, I don't know. I can't explain how they would both unless it was super hot and they still had dope and they thought doing dope would make things better. In that heat, that wouldn't have been the thing to do. I can come up with all sorts of scenarios, but my problem is my path that I was on for the investigation, it came to a screeching halt. So at that point, I wanted to file charges against Conn because I had evidence that when he talked to Colt on the phone that morning, Colt told him he was in a creek with a broken leg because there's an affidavit from Joe Russell saying Conn knew he was in a creek with a broken leg. At that point, it's negligent homicide at best because you left them there. It's not like you're the Olympic swimmer on the side of the pool and a baby fall in. You kicked the baby in the pool. And at that point, you become responsible. Since he put them there and now he knows that they're in harm's way, he had a duty to try to help. He says he didn't do nothing. That would be negligent homicide. Morally, he's responsible because he put them on a high-speed pursuit. He ran off and left them out there. I think when he knows he's got a broken leg, he becomes legally responsible. But I'll tell you this, Craig Ladd, the main DA, I don't even think he'd file that charge if I found their bodies out there, let alone the fact that I don't have a body.
Why do you think that is?
Ain't going to happen. It's just the way he does charges. And OSBI believes the same thing. Craig ain't going to file that. And I says, well, maybe we should talk to him. He says, and OSBI is like, no, I know Craig. He will not file that. Even if you find a body and they died of exposure, OSBI says it's not a good charge, which that wouldn't help me any at all because the minute you go to Craig Ladd with charges, he's going to call OSBI and ask their opinion. Kills your case. So what they did on the search warrant, he said, well, really, OSBI is working this. Let me call OSBI. And OSBI said, well, we can't get behind that because of liability. The truth of the matter was they didn't want to get behind it because they didn't see probable cause of a crime, which is kind of hardly necessary is necessary by statute of a search warrant. But the possibility of this being a crime is high.
Yeah, I would say so.
We're investigating criminal conduct. There is distribution of methamphetamine. There's a felony pursuit. There's a minor in the car. That's child endangerment. And now she's missing. I think you could probably even, and I redid the search warrant, but I never resubmitted it because they didn't want to, using child endangerment. And you just left them out there, and they're out there. But
hey, Jackie, remind me the name of the DA again. What's his name again?
Well, Craig Ladd is the main DA in Ardmore. And the ADA, I'm drawing a blank on that right now.
That's okay. That's right.
It's the same one, though. Isn't it the same DA that was there?
Sam Buck is the DA in Love County. He's not new, but he's relatively new. He wasn't there in the beginning. The original ADA was Gary Brown.
I just find it hard to believe that the excuse that they're using and is the fact that they don't want to disturb with the earth and the erosion. And
it might create an erosion problem, and then the county could get sued. And I was feeling like, are you serious? You should see the creeks I excavate, and I was even going to do the excavation. We excavate. If you ever make it back this way, you should come out where I live. It's more desolate than where Molly and Colt are. It's just, there's a lot of country like that in Oklahoma, and it's dangerous. If you're out there and you don't know what you're doing, you wander around at night during snake country. there is lots of stuff that you can get hurt. And I'll be honest, I don't know. There's no way of knowing, and OSBI will be the first to tell you, well, if we're going to solve this case, we need a body. Without a body, this case will never solve. And they don't think it'll ever solve anyway. They really don't.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that they're kind of leaning into that? Is it out of...
Because they don't think they'll ever get a body, and nobody's going to, if they ain't come forward and told us anything yet. There's so much out there that without a body, there's reasonable doubt, because you have all these various theories that create in and of itself reasonable doubt. So they don't think there'll ever be charges brought against anybody. But at the end of the day, where are they? That we have a duty there. And to be honest with you, and I shouldn't say this, and I told Paula the same thing. I think the idea that we have a couple of young dopers doing bad stuff, got themselves killed, and they don't really care.
Because they're disposable.
I agree with you, Jackie.
That sounds harsh and sounds terrible to say, but there's a lot of thought that goes that way.
There's a lot of judgment that's brought on this case. And the beginning, they just kept saying she was running away because she's on drugs. She ran away. That's it. Whatever. Case closed. So, it's an epidemic with thinking that people are disposable. It happens a lot. We've seen it in other cases. We've seen it with, women that were prostitutes. We've seen it with Latino young girls. We've seen it.
Yeah. Any evidence that you dig up that opens the door for them to even think that, wait a minute, we might not have a crime here. They jump on that. Because if there ain't a crime, as far as law enforcement's concerned, well, my job's done.
Exactly.
We only do crimes, right?
But I think you have a really good point. I think that you have a very good point about Conn, that he was out there. He dumped them there. He left them in the woods in the middle of the night.
He was always morally responsible. You can't do that.
Even if he physically is not responsible for their murder, he does have a moral obligation to come forward and say what happened.
Yeah. And if he just left them out there, he knew that he had a broken leg in a creek, and how's he going to get out of the creek? If he doesn't help him, who will? Nobody. That's negligent homicide. He had a duty to go he fell in a creek. He ain't going to walk out now. And he left them there. And Colt don't know the area at all. Molly, she spent a lot of time down on Long Hollow in the swimming pool. She sure didn't spend it out hiking in the woods. So I think the minute when you have evidence that he knows he's hurt, that changes everything.
Well, it changes everything for us. It doesn't change anything for law enforcement or the DA. because they don't see it that way.
It does to me. If there's a lot of DAs that I've worked with DAs that would file that charge.
So what can we do?
You're not going to get that in Carter County because Craig Ladd's a lot more liberal in that aspect. He wants a slam dunk case, and my thought is I don't know if he's more involved or not, but if he's charged, if someone else killed him, that's an affirmative defense. He's got a reason to talk. Right now, he has no reason to talk. He has every reason not to talk. And I've tried to communicate with him. I've opened the door. I've talked to his mother, and she was real nice. And I'm not very accusatory. I mean, I'm like, if Molly's a good friend of his, and his mom was like a second mom to her, you should want her found. And that's what I'm trying to do is find her because she is missing. We all agree on that. We don't agree why she's missing, but we all agree she's missing. And if you're her friend and you're her second mom, you should want her found. And I need to talk to Conn to clear up some things. Some not accusatory questions, just some questions he was never asked that I would ask.
What would you ask him?
So,
what would you ask him?
What did he do after he got home? Where did he go? You know, did he ever hear back from Rob and Devin? Did they ever call you back? Did you get any voicemails? See, they never subpoenaed the voicemails. Did you get any voicemails? And I would really like to know, because this is to find out if I'm getting an honest story anyway. When did you go back to the car on horseback? Who rode the horses back to the car? That was either Colt, Kobe, or him. And why did you go back to the car? What'd you see?
Yeah.
I want to hear an honest, we kind of figured this or we figured that. I mean, his theory on the story, it's changed a little bit with the people that have interviewed him, but I never could get an open door with him. And I tried and so I was like, we're from a deputy standpoint in Love County, I was pretty much done. If the DA won't back your investigation, because what if I'm right? What if they did fall in the creek and died there and nobody ever found them? If that happened, the fact that you won't give me a search warrant means the case will never get solved because there's evidence in that creek of whatever happened to them. All of those dogs did not lie. Too many cadaver dogs, which OSBI don't believe in. Too many dogs says I have human remains in the creek somewhere. All the other evidence points to that's where they were when they were making the call. So there's enough there that's where we need to go. But we're never gonna.
And the property owner is unwilling to let anybody on that property to look.
Yeah, he already let us do some searches and run the dogs, but when it comes to doing any more, he's done. He doesn't. And I kind of see his point from, hey, I'm retired. I bought this to get out in the country. I don't want a lot of people around. I definitely don't want a lot of attention. I get that. But, we have that needs to be answered because this case affects a lot of people. It affects how the world's looking at the county, how the world looks at. That's the deal. If the Nipps and Joe Russell really want to clear their name, they should have helped me. Unless they can't clear their name. You see what I mean? It makes me a little suspicious of why didn't you help me? It makes them look guilty, but I can't really go there because I know they've been hounded. I know a lot of things have gone on, and I can see them being hesitant to talk to law enforcement. But on the flip side, most people that know us both, know them and know me, know that I was just after the truth. If you're innocent, the truth is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a quick question. The gentleman's whose property this is on, is he a local or is he someone who came from outside and bought that property?
He's out of Dallas, and he's a little bit kind of like me. He's a little bit of a prepper, believes that, it's time to get out in the country and self-sufficient. And so he bought the place, and he's in the process of building a home out there, even though he still works out of Dallas. But that's his intention, is to move up there and retire and be self-sufficient. And so having a lot of people around he's mad because he said, I did not know when I bought this property about all of this. And I'm like, well, but you own the property and it's fact. So it's not going to go away.
No. And then how long has he owned the property? And did he buy it? Obviously, he bought it obviously after the fact, correct?
Oh yeah, he hadn't owned the property that long. He's owned it 3 years, 4 years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they knew about the case and they knew it was in that area, but he was okay with us searching it just to go ahead and clear the land. But instead of clearing the land, my focus ended up on the land. That became a problem. It's like, no, shoot me an email address and I'll send you a copy of the search warrant that got denied.
Okay.
I mean, it has not all, because, I just put what's needed, or what I thought was needed.
The way the DA reacted to the search warrant saying about the erosion, to me, it's like, that doesn't add up. I mean, whether the county and
liability, that we might have some liability in getting a skid steer down in there and digging through the dirt. I explained to him, I said, you're going to go through the dirt. You're going to put the dirt back right behind you. So it's dirt. And you can repack it down.
It's dirt. It's not like they're tearing apart a house.
No, and it's not even.
I mean, they've done that. They've had search warrants where they actually basically tore apart houses.
Down a house.
Exactly.
We tore one completely apart. It was trashed. We're just digging dirt and putting it back. We're sifting through where, like I said, there's something in the creek.
Mm-hmm.
Leaving the dog.
Yeah, there was that one lake that Paula did the side scan sonar at. They all showed up. All the law enforcement showed up and just sat there and watched. But they weren't happy that was happening either.
Well, they did less than sit and watch. They had issues with the guys that were filming. Well, with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had issues with the film crew being there. Well, you know what? I mean, Paula always plays nice because she needs their help and stuff, but truthfully, they just follow her around. There is not one search that was, other than maybe a cop go out there, but organized where you bring in, Oklahoma Search and Rescue or any of those groups. Not one time was that done from a law enforcement standpoint. It was all Paula. They never organized. They never really looked for them. Someone shows up and has something to say, they'll interview them, usually come back and say, well, I see some discrepancies in the story. It's not credible. Write it all down and file it somewhere. They're waiting for someone to come solve it for them. That ain't going to happen.
No, I think they're running the clock out.
There's way too much that was left undone. How can I be focused and wanting a search warrant for a creek that's less than 700 feet from the vehicle that they abandoned? How does that happen? That's absolute negligence.
The fact that
if that's where they were, they should have been found then.
700 feet away from where the car was dumped.
Mm-hmm.
Has never been searched.
That's right.
Right.
We were there.
We were there.
No.
It's not that far.
Yeah.
You can throw a stone.
Yeah, the other side of a fence, that was a forbidden boundary. And then the landowner tells me, well, no, we didn't actually look in the creek. We just rode around. I'm like, well, that's a problem. Of course, she wasn't going in that creek. This thing you could get hurt. It was a ditch.
Yeah, no, it's pretty rough.
Yeah, it's really ice. If I would have got the search warrant, I would have bet money the first day at the top end of the creek. I think they're buried right there. Well, somebody is. Colt is. Molly could have. There was a story where Molly got help and they came back. It was too late for Colt. Now you have a dead Colt and Molly ends up getting killed. There was one storyline that went that way. I don't disprove that by finding Colt. If he died in that creek, getting him out of it would have been a task. It would have been a lot easier just to take a shovel and get the side to cave off and bury him. I'm at a loss with it as far as, the system don't work if you don't have the whole team. If the DA shuts down, if a judge won't, if they don't see the need, the liability thing, I get it, but I don't. I think that's just the cop out on, I don't buy into this liability thing. Neither do you. No one else will.
No,
either.
it doesn't make any sense.
No, it's ridiculous.
It makes no sense.
It's like a technicality.
And when you see all the,
we've been out in that property. It's vast.
It ain't even a technicality. It's an absolute excuse. It's a terrible excuse.
And you're saying this DA is a fairly new DA?
Yeah, but Craig Ladd's aware of it because Philip Klein, he read the search warrant. He made a pretty big stink over it. And
what did he do again?
He made a pretty big stink over it, with a press release about it. And he believes the search warrant's absolutely valid. It confirms some of his findings, which, like his 2016 canine alert. See,
Yeah.
It lines up with his canine alert.
Yeah. And we know the person that he
All of it.
used for that canine search. We've actually used that person, that woman as well, and those dogs. And those dogs,
Yeah.
they don't miss.
No. And see, it explains why they were down there. Not that the bodies were, but why they had an alert there, because the location I'm looking at directly feeds. You can't tell it's downstream because you're in a different creek. It kind of flows off the side of a hill down there, and you don't really realize that that's there's another upstream from what creek you're actually in. You just keep going up the creek and go, this is as far as it is. This must be the upstream point, when in fact it wasn't. I don't know. I'd like you to read the search warrant, because that has pretty much, it uses the reasoning why I want to look there. And if you see all the issues with it, you'll understand, that should be looked into. Marty, the sheriff, he absolutely believes that, and he's going to go try to talk to the owner personally, but he absolutely believes we need to get in that crate. Marty believes they're both there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I believe our evidence is there. The trail's there. I've been doing this. I've been involved in this case long enough not to nail myself down to anything. Because
absolutely, you can't.
Because no, you have to be open-minded to all the possibilities. I can't disprove Luann and Larry didn't do something to them, because they're on their land.
Yeah.
That's where they actually win. I don't believe that, but the way you solve these cases and get to the truth is you follow the path, and the path stopped. I mean, they were making the calls from there. They never got searched, and the dogs say something's still there. We should look. That's all I need to know. That I need to do the work. And it would have been nice if we did it a long time ago, but now that we've waited 8.5 years, it's going to require some digging.
Yeah.
It just,
and apparently,
and
apparently there was a heavy rainstorm after that too, and that could have washed the remains.
We had two rains. We had two rains before they even found the car. So theoretically, the way this creek has a vertical dirt wall, those two rains could have soaked into that exterior and caused it to shear off. That's how the creek forms, is why it has vertical walls. By the time they found the car, they both could have been buried already, the way the creek kind of works. So, I mean, it's a possibility. But when it comes to human remains being in that creek, and that's where the calls were being made from, and the fact that it was never searched and it's that close to where they got out of the vehicle, that's a probability. Something's there.
Yeah, something's there, but
high probability.
I find it very interesting, the fact that I couldn't believe how close the property line, the Nipp's property line, was towards that location. We're talking like probably about 400 yards.
I think to this, it's probably further than that. I'm not exactly sure where the Nipp property line is.
We saw it. We were there.
Conn was like,
of course, you're at the burn pit, which is, it's not real far east of where I'm suggesting, but it's east of there, and then their property line's a little further east from there. And like I said, I hadn't really paid much attention, because my start point was always where the vehicle was.
Yeah. Well, you can actually see the fence line from where the vehicle was. You can see it very easily.
Oh, okay.
It's that close, and to me, it just seems kind of strange that being that close, and for the amount of time that has passed, and in like these flimsy little farm fences, I mean, it was like a wire fence you could just kind of step over, that kind of divided the two property lines. I mean, who's to say that those remains weren't removed? Easily removed.
In 2013, some of them were left because the dogs say they were.
Mm-hmm.
But the interesting thing is, in 2013, there was a tree line there, because that fence wasn't what it is now. And they rebuilt it and cleared those trees. When you look at it, you would think, why would they go that direction? It didn't make sense. And it might not have to anybody else when they looked at the car. And they could have went the one direction. I figured Kobe and them would cross over into that. But Jim Diggs says, no, they wouldn't have went on Luann's property. But Luann would say different. So I get conflicting information on that. The search, they should have authorized the search warrant, and I think we would be, I think, because I absolutely believe Colt's there. I don't know about Molly, but I don't think If he died in that creek, getting him out would have been more work than just sloughing the edge off and burying him. Dead bodies are hard to mess with, and it's pulling out of a vertical thing, and it's on someone else's property that actively lives there. You're in their backyard. You don't want to get found with a body. So if you're doing a bunch of work or making noise and they show up and you're trying to get a dead body out of a creek, that's going to be hard to explain. I don't think they got Colt out of there. I think that's where Colt is. I don't know about Molly. She could be there, but I believe Colt's there. And I believe that Paula does too. Paula believes that Colt's probably still there.
Yeah.
There's enough evidence in the search warrant to, I can't explain the dogs caving off new dirt and running dirt down through there. You get the scent all the way down through there. I don't think 8.5 years later, these dogs would still be picking something up if there wasn't a considerable amount of human remains still there.
You don't have to buy custom window treatments in person because Blinds.com invented a better way. Blinds.com is 100% online. There's no showroom markups or waiting hours for quotes from pushy salespeople. A Blinds.com designer helped me pick the perfect style for free. And Blinds.com shipped free samples right to my door. You can DIY or book a pro like I did with just one click. Best of all, everything's covered with the Blinds.com 100% satisfaction guarantee.
Shop Blinds.com for 35% off site-wide. Rules and restrictions may apply.
My Stitch Fix box is here. I'm a busy guy with no time to shop, so I signed up for Stitch Fix, and it was so easy. I took a quiz to share my size, style, and budget, and they took care of the rest. My stylist picks 5 items just for me. Yes, on this blazer. The fit on these jeans? Just right. Keep what you love, send back the rest. Free shipping and returns, and no subscription required. Stitch Fix. My stylist just gets me, and they'll get you too. Get started today at StitchFix.com.
This episode is brought to you by the new true crime docuseries American Nightmare, only on Netflix. In 2015, the Vallejo, California Police Department received a strange phone call about a kidnapping. But when the truth is stranger than fiction, you won't know who to trust or what is real. A fast-paced true crime thriller with cliffhangers at every turn. Watch American Nightmare now, only on Netflix.
Which would probably mean all a cult, but I don't know. Again, what do I do with an investigation? That's what I told Marty. I quit last week. I said, well, I'm done here. There's nothing more I can do as a deputy in Love County. The only reason I was a Love County deputy was to wrap up that case. Of course, Marty wanted me to keep going on it, but there's nowhere to go. Nothing. If the landowner says no and the DA says no, then OSBI is good at interviewing people. So if they want to go interview people, then, that's not gotten them anywhere.
Well, they only interview people when Paula presents them people.
Right.
Let's be clear.
Yeah,
they're not.
I noticed that.
They're not actively looking for people. They'll interview people that Paula says, "Hey, listen, this guy told me this. You should interview him." Okay, we'll interview him. Bring him in. Nothing happens.
Yeah,
and nothing happens. They
because they're as an interviewer, they're negative to begin with. You're skeptical already. So as soon as you find any error in the story, if part of it's wrong, all of it's wrong. And of course, from a legal standpoint, that's true. In a courtroom, if part of his story is wrong, it kind of impeaches the rest of it. But from an investigative standpoint, sometimes part of their story is true and the other people tell half truth. You can't take the legal position on it. You're not trying it in court. You're trying to find where they're at.
During your investigation, when you're looking at this and you're talking to people, and have you talked to the OSBI people?
On a regular basis. I'm kind of a nuisance because he told me one time, he says, this case completely dies down and then somebody comes in and kind of brings it back to the surface. And I'm like, so now I'm the bad guy because now you're talking about me. And he goes, no. But yeah, he was. It kind of dies down and then someone takes an interest and brings it back up to front and center. And that's the way it should be because the family's what keeps it alive. If it wasn't for Paula, this thing would have been long. Well, that's just buried urban legend. We wouldn't be having this conversation. There would have never been an attempt to get a search warrant. Nothing would happen on this case because they have other cases that's easier. This is not an easy case. From my viewpoint, technically it is an easy case because it has limited possibilities because it's such a rural area. You know where they were. They're dumped out here. Only one person knows where they're dumped.
Exactly. To me, it's like...
Yeah, only one person knows where he left them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And only one person knows exactly where he left them for that first 2 weeks, because they're not alive after 2 weeks. So that little interim there's only one person that knows where he dumped them. I guess Luann and Larry could have found them and done something to them. Not really the kind of people that would do that. So that's who has access to that area. And then the Nipps have access to that area, and that pretty much sums it up. And we don't believe they walked out because the victim saying, I have a broken leg. Not going, I don't see how you could get out of that creek with a broken leg. You'll almost break your leg trying to get out of it being healthy.
Oh, there's no way if he had a broken leg that he would have been able to go anywhere.
No,
I mean, that area is so vast.
He ain't going nowhere.
And there's so many rocks.
Yeah.
And I was walking around and I was like, oh my God, one wrong step and you could fall down into a hole.
And and it's dark.
So
when they were there was dark.
And there was rattlesnakes there. I mean, there's no way if he had a broken leg that he could go anywhere. And that's why he was screaming at them. He was telling them, I have a broken leg. I can't go anywhere. You got to come get me. Yeah. So this thing with the horseback, going back to the car for a second, did they have evidence that there was a horseback going back to the car? Like, what was the evidence to say that that happened?
Yeah. Okay, so when they found the car, the time they found the car, it's 2 weeks later. It had rained twice. Otherwise, it was a drought, right? So when they found the car, there was muddy. It was a Colt's horse print, so it was one that they were probably breaking. Probably be Kobe Bear. And they were around the car. You could see the muddy tracks. And, of course, Luann, even when I interviewed her this last time, she even brought it up again. Brought it up in 2014. She brought it up again. And she even says, it was kind of dumb they didn't follow those tracks back to where they came from. They could have followed it right back to the Nip, because that's who rode up there. There wasn't a lot of horses around who'd be riding a horse, and who'd be riding a young colt at that. And so it'd have to be from Nips, because that's what he did. He broke horses for John.
Colby Barrick did.
And so Colby Barrick did, yeah. And so did Conn. Conn broke horses. So it could have been Conn, could have been Kobe. I don't know. There could have been, if there was a lot of prints like that, it could have been two colts. They could have rode two, or they both could have went up there. But nobody, when they interviewed them, ever asked about them. And it's like 2 weeks later, it's after, I think the first rain was like the 15th. So it has to be after the first rain, which would have been the 15th. But it could have been a rain after that, because there's another rain that came somewhere after that. But both rains were before they found the car. Sometime after the 15th, they went missing on the 8th. Kobe and Conn most likely rode a horse up there to the car to look. I don't know why they rode it up there. It could have been, well, let's go check it out. And they could have rode up there and looked and says, well, they're not here. And they could have thought, well, they must have went over there. I mean, they wouldn't have went over the fence through the trees into Luann's and found anything. They would have been dead by then. They could have went up there to get evidence that they felt they left. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they did go up there.
Well, they also
and no one ever asked about it.
Yeah. Well, they also had someone covering their back during this whole time, and we know who that was. I mean, you have Joe Russell, who's basically controlling no investigation. There was no investigation. He wasn't looking into it.
I think he felt. I mean, if I wanted to be the devil's advocate and take Joe's position, or explain Joe's actions, it's pretty simple to explain. It wasn't his problem. She's missing from Carter County. It's Carter County's problem. Just because she's missing, you say she's down here, well, you need to deal with it through them. And I don't think he really tried that hard, because I always had a problem. Joe, why didn't you just go to Conn and say, hey, these kids were with you. Where'd you leave them?
Exactly.
Conn would have told him.
Yeah. So, and he probably did.
He probably did.
I'm sure he did, because he had to interview him.
I would have thought he would have went and asked Conn where they were, which raises another question, because Conn would have to tell him, because he would have been afraid he would get his ass whooped. If Conn told him and Joe went up there and found them and they were already dead, because remember, Joe don't come into play right at the 8th, and you find him in the creek dead. Now what? Is this negligent homicide? Do you think it's felony murder? What approach does Joe look at it? Does he think Conn's going to be held liable for doing something stupid and doesn't do anything? Or covers it up. I mean, all of that is possible.
Listen, if they died by exposure, and if Colt,
they would have found them.
Yeah, and if
they would have found their bodies before this.
And if Colt died because of his leg injury, and he maybe he had a compound fracture or whatever, and and the exposure to the elements, and they died that way, why would you cover it up? Because if they didn't have any hand in it, and they just died because they were out in the elements,
but they did. But he did have a hand in it. He left
I know.
them there.
Exactly. But still.
See, I believe he's legally was here in Jefferson County. I would make the charge. I would charge him, and I'd talk to the DA, and we would at least plead the case and let the jury decide if that's what they want. Because as far as I'm concerned, that's negligent homicide. A reasonable person should understand that if you dump your friend out in the woods and he calls you and says, I've fallen in a creek and I've broken my leg, and you do nothing and you leave him out there, that he's probably not going to make it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would make the charge. If it was Jefferson County, I would have charged, especially with what I know now and the evidence that, yeah, he did, because there's always the question, well, he didn't know he had a broken leg. In fact, Joe told me that. Joe told me not that long ago.
What?
Well, he didn't know that he had a broken leg.
That's not true. I see the statement here.
And then I find an affidavit from Joe stating that Conn did know that he had a broken leg. So which is it? But now Joe's a lot older. He might not remember the details, but you would think a case that trashed your career, you would remember every little detail, right?
Yeah.
I would. And you would think he would be more helpful. That's what I told Jim Diggs. I said, Joe wasn't as helpful as he could have been in my investigation. He should have been more helpful, because Jim will tell you, and I'll tell you, I was not out to prove any particular theory. I was just out to find out what really happened. If you're innocent, that's a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Makes me question all of that. But let me email you the affidavit that I actually filed, and you can read through it. And like I said, there's additional stuff that's actually not in there, but I didn't think it was necessary. But I come to those same conclusions through other evidence. I don't list all of the dogs. I mentioned some of them, but I don't list all the dogs. I don't list how I came up with the phone records and I originally determined that's the direction they went, and they had to based on the phone records and the pings. And then Paula gave me Hawk Analytics number, and they agreed for free to do what they do for other law enforcement, including OSBI and the FBI use these people. And they came back with, I would look north or northeast. Well, if you go north or northeast of that car in the dark, I know what creek you fell in. You didn't get over this creek in the dark, and it's very, very close to the car. The fact that everyone says we never looked there, no search. You ask OSBI, they'll say, "Well, we didn't. We were told that was searched." Really?
Who told OSBI that area was searched?
Well, OSBI says Jim Diggs told them that was all searched, and I said, "Well, Jim Diggs didn't tell me that." And my further investigation, all the way down to the landowner confirmed exactly what Jim Diggs told me, exactly how he found the car. And she's an older lady, but she was pretty articulate in explaining when Jim showed up and what Jim wanted to do, and that they got in her vehicle and how they drove the path they took around her ranch. They actually drove around where they were and came up to the vehicle. They saw the vehicle over there, and they jumped out, and she went over the fence. Now, Jim, there's a discrepancy there. Jim says they went through a gate. She says she went over the fence. Wasn't that much of a fence. But, they both went to the car. And then she said after that, her and her brother rode around to see if they were around there, and they didn't see them. So of course, this is 2 weeks later. They're already dead somewhere, and so they didn't see nothing. Of course, she has 200 acres. Two people searching 200 acres. And you exclude the one place you should be looking. They didn't go in that creek. When Jim Diggs first went to it, I says, and him and his brother crawl out of the creek at the south end. He never gets up to the end where they actually are. I mean, it's a crack in the ground. And so Jim, do you think Luann and Larry actually went down in that creek? And God, I can't even say what he said, but it was no.
Yeah.
But they did. And when I talked to her, interviewed Luann, she confirmed, no, we didn't go in the creek. Thing's a death trap, actually. She said something to that work. She really didn't agree that, no, we didn't go in the creek. But at the time when she would have been looking, she wouldn't have known. See, we know stuff now. She wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
Well, they fell in a creek. We should look in the creek. So now you just know, well, are they on my property anywhere? And they look around and go, no, they're not here.
Yeah.
But they don't know to look in a creek because
no, it's like the car was. It was like the car was in their front yard and their bodies were in the backyard, and so they just looked where the car was, They didn't bother to look in the backyard.
Yeah. This thing it's such a mess, and that's why you have to have latitude. Later on, 8 years later, they should give law enforcement a little more latitude. I didn't even need the latitude for the search warrant. I thought that was a damn good search warrant. I had judges in Texas look at it, and they were like, "Yeah, I think you got probable cause. I'd authorize the search warrant." I talked to other judges that are friends of mine, and they thought it was a good search warrant, but it was denied.
So there's no method or there's no procedure that if a local judge or a DA rejects a search warrant, that there's not another governing body that can you have a look at it and they can supersede that?
You could try to go to the Fed, and I thought, they passed that new law establishing a federal agency for missing and murdered Indians. And so I went to them, but right after that federal law was passed, Oklahoma State passed one forming that same agency inside of OSBI. They didn't fund it. They just formed it. So now you're stepping on toes. And when I contacted them, they contacted OSBI. They said it's still an active case. We're still working it. And the BIA said, well, we don't want to step on toes. They're still working it. We'll check back with them.
Yeah,
but it ain't an active case.
No. That's how they can just keep information closed off.
Yeah.
That's how they can.
And I was never given access to any of the information. I mean, OSBI shared some stuff verbally, but truthfully, we should have been able to get access to anything they've done. I reviewed the files in Wilson. The Wilson PD worked the case in the beginning, and they interviewed a lot of people. And and they did a really good job. I was impressed, and it's a big old thick file, and maybe there was something in the OSBI file that would have really clicked and said, aha, that aha moment that you see all the time. Someone that's extremely familiar with the case will catch stuff that someone that's working 50 cases won't.
Mm-hmm.
So, the fact that they wouldn't share that was a big obstruction in the case. I hate it because I think the family has the right to know where their loved one is and what really happened to them. If it wasn't as bad as what all the rumors are, then they should know that. And if it is bad and someone needs to go to prison for it, then the facts should come out. Just because they're young. We all did stupid stuff when we were young. And in these communities, in the drug community, just because they got off on the wrong trail, they're still just teenagers trying to do the teenage thing and hang with their friends and peer pressure and do what they do, and you throw the drugs in there. The fact that we made it a huge crime, because this was a big felony crime to be doing all this stuff. And now we're looking at it like, maybe this is maybe we're handling this problem wrong. That's why in Oklahoma, it's a misdemeanor for drug possession, because we finally decided, that putting them in jail wasn't solving the problem.
Yeah, but they weren't from what we know, they weren't just doing drugs. They were distributing and selling from what we know.
Too. Colt, the combination of Colt and Conn, yeah. Molly was just being a groupie.
Yes, absolutely.
She wasn't. She was just hanging out with Colt because he was good looking and young, and she was infatuated. She hadn't known him that long. I mean, she wasn't no big drug smuggler. She was just a typical teenage girl with the wrong people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
100%.
So we got another tip over the weekend on our tip line. So it's very important for people, if you have information about this case, to send it to us and to call that tip line, because we're getting closer. I feel like we're getting closer. Don't you think, Cindy?
Yeah, I do. And I think that tip line is really important because a lot of people are afraid to say anything, and you're anonymous. We're not going to reveal who you are if you call the tip line. And someone actually called, didn't leave a message.
And then we called them back.
And then they were willing to talk to us. So we're going to play with what happened.
Hello.
Hi, this is Rob and Cindy from the podcast.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you? Oh, I'm hot. It's hot in Oklahoma today.
I know, it's hot here too. It's hot here too.
Yeah. I just want to give y'all a little what I heard back then. Y'all can do it Y'all can do what you want to with it, but I don't want to be involved with nothing. Just because I was on drugs back then, and I'm clean now. And whenever Molly and them come up missing, I was living with a man named Jimmy Powell. He lived in Dixon, in Carter County, and I was supposed to cook for us one night, and he got an emergency phone call and said he had to leave. And then he got back really late that night and said, and he was real panicky and freaking, kind of freaked out feeling, and he said that one day somebody was going to go fishing in a pond on Gene Autry Road and pull up a hand that there was two young people that was put in a tin box and put in a pond out there on Breanne Watkins' land, which Breanne Watkins is the daughter to a big drug guy that he's in the tin right now. His name is Billy Barber. That Colt and Conn owed money to Billy Barber for drugs, and that Conn could get his money clean if he would get Colt out to the property on Long Hollow. And that Billy or Billy hired somebody to be out there waiting on them when they got there. And that Molly was just there at the wrong time. And that they had taken the bodies to this pond. That Billy Barber's girlfriend's daughter is who owned the property that the pond was on.
Do you know the name of the pond?
The pond? I don't know that it don't have a name. It's just on her property on Gene Autry Road, which I'm fixing to be driving by, so I can give you the address in a minute.
Okay.
I know where the house is. My daughter, when she was back then, she was young, and she used to hang around with this Bria Watkins' daughter. And then I noticed that it was getting kind of wild over there. And of course, I wasn't perfect back then, so I really didn't. I just kind of closed my eye to it, and tried to not think of them as bad people. But yeah, it's my daughter. And then right after all this happened, Bria moved out, and she's living now in Medill, Oklahoma.
I'm sorry, who was the woman that was living there?
Bria Watkins. She was the daughter to Delinda Chatham, which was Billy Barber's girlfriend.
And Billy Barber was a big drug dealer.
Billy Barber was a big drug guy.
And so just to back up, just to kind of reiterate what you just said, Billy Barber was a drug dealer, and he met up with Conn Nipp.
He supposedly, what Jimmy Powell told me, was that he owed money for drugs, and I guess Colt did. The other guy that's missing with Molly, that guy owed money also, and that Conn got his money, his bill clean if he would get Colt out there to the property, and that they were going to, I guess, I don't know if they were going to kill him or beat him up or what, but Molly was there, and she shouldn't have been there. She was at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Do you know how many days after the car chase that was? Do you remember?
I don't know. Like I said, he didn't tell me. He didn't actually say Molly Miller and Colt Haynes. He just said them young people. He just said he wouldn't tell me the names, but he was just kind of insinuating that it was them. But and that was the same week that they come up that you hear about. You heard about it on the radio and everywhere else. Everywhere you went, that's all you heard about. So I mean, I knew who he was talking about, but I guess just for his own good, he felt better about not saying the names. I don't know why. Paranoid, probably.
Did you ever tell law enforcement this?
Yes, I did.
Who did you say?
I called that hotline number, and I don't remember the name of the man that I talked to, but he acted like, no, there was no way that they could be out there.
Oh, meaning that they couldn't be in the pond that you were talking about.
They couldn't be in the pond. So.
And did you give them this guy Billy Barber's name?
No, I did not, because at the time, like I said, I was not living right, and I didn't want to give them that much information, but I wanted them to know where the bodies were.
Okay, and they said he was. If you can just repeat what you said as far as the person who told you that they were going to be in a pond in a tin in a box, because it was kind of hard to hear you in the beginning.
Okay, to tell you the whole story again. Okay, I was cooking supper. I'm right here at the house. Let me give you an address right quick before I tell you again. Okay.
Okay.
And there's a fence up now with the security camera out here. The address is Gene Autry Road.
Okay. And what town is that in?
Excuse me?
What town is that in?
It's in Dixon, or Ardmore, Oklahoma. It's a valley.
Ardmore. I was going to say that. Ardmore. And about how far is that from Long Hollow Road?
That is it's in Carter County. I don't know, about 20 miles. We're about 20 miles from Marietta.
Okay.
I was staying with Jimmy Powell, and he came, and I was supposed to be cooking supper that night, and he decided he had to go somewhere. And then when he got back, he had told me that somebody was going to go fishing in this pond on Bria Watkins' land and pull up a hand one day, is what he said, exactly what he said. And he was like, it's them two young guys. That he didn't say Molly Miller or Colt, he just said them two young ones. And then he told me the story about how that there was a guy owed money, the two guys owed money, and they got their bills wiped clean, and he didn't say Molly, he just said the girl was there, but it wasn't planned on her being there. She was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And I put two and two together and figured out that it was Colt.
What were your thoughts when you first heard this? I mean, what did you think?
I didn't know him. I don't know Molly. I didn't know Molly. I didn't know any of them. I just knew the drug people mainly in Carter County. I knew Billy Barber. I knew that whole gang, and that's something that he would do. I just hope they could hurry up fine. I wish they were family and explosion. Just had to call y'all because I feel like it's hard to go to sleep at night and not worry because, like I said, I have children, and I wouldn't want to have to go to bed not knowing where my children were at night. Well,
we appreciate that. Now, the law enforcement that you talked to, was it the OSBI?
I don't remember exactly what department it was. It could have been Carter County. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly who I called, but I know it was a hotline.
How long ago was this?
Oh, gosh. I couldn't even tell you each year, really. It's been a long while ago.
But it was the hotline number that's on...
It was a hotline number. I don't know. I just remember it was a hotline number.
Okay.
I didn't want to call up county, and I didn't want to use the hotline. I seen on Facebook.
And this Jimmy Powell, tell me a little bit about him.
He's dead now.
Okay, Jimmy Powell's dead. And he was a friend of yours at the time?
Yes, he was a friend of mine, and he was letting me stay with him for a while.
Okay.
And what was the reasoning? What was the reason that Billy Barber killed Colt and not Conn?
Because they owed money. I don't know why. I don't have no idea why. That's all I know. That's all I know. I guess because it seems to me like it would be because he got, I guess, the Colt, I don't know if he owed more money or I don't know. Conn got Colt out there. And so I don't know. I can't tell you that. In my opinion, it would be that Colt maybe was buying drugs from Conn and got Conn behind on his drug debt. And Billy Barber could have said, if you get him out here, we'll take care of it, and then your bill's wiped clean. That could be my only theory on it. But like I said, I don't know.
Had you ever heard something like that happen before, people having to repay their debts that way with their either getting beat up or their life?
Have.
You have?
Yeah, a guy by the name of Jimmy Fight got killed that way.
Who did?
Jimmy Fight.
Jimmy, what's the last name?
Fight.
Can you
F-I-T-E.
F-I-T-E. Jimmy Fight. So tell me about Jimmy Fight and his experience.
Well, somebody had dropped him off at a shop, and a potato sack was put on his head. And the main drug dealer, Chase Stevens is in jail for killing Jimmy Fight, but Chase Stevens also had a gun pointed at him, saying that if he didn't kill Jimmy Fight, he was going to be dead. So, and it was all over drug money.
And Chase Stevens is still in prison.
He's in prison now. Yeah.
For killing Jimmy Fight.
For killing Jimmy Fight.
When did that happen? After Molly and Colt or before?
After, I believe. It wasn't. I don't exactly know the date. I don't know. All I know is at the time he wasn't my ex-husband at the time, but later in that, my ex-husband got subpoenaed to go to court over that deal because he was the one that took Jimmy Fight to the shop where they were waiting on him at. Right? It's just a big circle. Carter County and Love County, this is a big drug. I mean, the drug. Everybody knows everybody, especially in the drug world, and they won't talk. And I'm only talking because I got clean, and I just feel like I need to tell somebody that would listen to what I heard.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
I don't know that it will get y'all anywhere, but it's time for somebody to come clean. It's been long enough.
Is this guy, Billy Barber, still around?
He's in jail.
He's in jail. Okay.
He's in a pen for drugs.
Okay. So both him and Chase Stevens are in jail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brienne Watkins, she's really big into church. Like I said, she moved right after that, within a month after that happened. And she moved to Medill, which is about 30 miles the other way from the opposite direction to Marietta Carter.
And Bria, tell me her role again, Bria Watkins again?
Bria lived in the house that the pond was at.
Got it.
And Bria is Billy Barber's girlfriend, her ex-girlfriend, Delinda Chatham. Brienne is Delinda's daughter.
Got it. And the address you just gave me is where the pond is. Where that pond is. Yeah. And that's in Ardmore.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is very interesting, and we really appreciate you reaching out to us. Tell us. Obviously, you found out about us through the podcast.
Yes, I listened to Did you say that I listened to your podcast?
Yeah.
Yes, and whenever I heard Molly's aunt talking about that freezer, I thought to myself, Jimmy had told me that it was in a metal box. And then that her friend talking about her dream where she was wet at the graduation. Her dream she was wet at the graduation. I thought, oh my, and I got chills right now all over my body just thinking about it. But it just made my stomach. I mean, and I called, I did everything I should have done. Even back then when I was strung out, I tried to do the right thing, and nobody would listen. I mean, what do you do? There's nothing else you can do until something like this comes up where you have the opportunity to tell it again.
Yeah. Are you familiar with any of the other names that you've heard in the podcast? Obviously, you know Conn Nipp or Colby Barrack.
No, I don't know any of those things. The only person that I did know was Bobby Williams. I don't know. He was with in one of the podcasts. It was talking about him being with a group of other people.
Oh yeah, at the casino.
At the casino.
He is a very dangerous man. He beat one of my friends with a tire that had been blown out and with a strip of rubber. He beat her to a pulp with that rubber from a tire. Yeah.
What's going on out there in that county? It seems like there's not that many people.
No, but the drugs have taken over, and I had to move completely out of Ardmore. Nobody knows where I live or nothing anymore, and I want to keep it that way because it's hard to get away. The thing about it is you can get off the drugs, but you can't get away from the people around here. That's the whole big problem because it's so small, when everybody knows everybody. And there's the majority of the people are on drugs instead of not on drugs around me. It's sad to say. It's so sad. It used to not be like this.
It's terrible.
But I think that nobody will talk because Billy Barber is such a dangerous man. He's got a daughter and a son-in-law that still live in Wilson, and they will do whatever they got to do to take up for their dad. And that includes hurt. And I think that's why people won't talk.
Yeah, so that's what we figured too. We figured because people have told us that there are people bigger and badder than the people that we're talking about out there that know what went on.
Yeah, but anyway, that's all I got to say. If I hear of anything else, I'll sure call this number back.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank y'all. Good luck.
All righty.
Thank you.
I'll be listening.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Next time on Partners in True Crime.
We just got access to a really revealing recording that took place a few months ago regarding this case. And the information in this recording is so shocking that we are kind of stunned by it. We're not going to reveal it right now, but we'll definitely have it on the next episode. It's a bombshell.
It is a bombshell, and I think it's going to change the dynamic of the case. And I think law enforcement is aware of some of these details, but I don't think they're aware of the level of details that we're going to reveal.
And it's coinciding with some other stories that we've just heard.
It's not a new theory. It kind of coalesces people and locations and everything. It's all starting to come together. And so tune in next week and you're going to hear it. If you or anyone you know is suffering from a methamphetamine addiction, please contact the American Meth Addiction Hotline.
If you or anyone you know has been the victim of sexual abuse, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline.
For any tips relating to the disappearance of Molly Miller and Colt Haynes, please contact 833-4-MOLLY and Colt, and they will be directed to the proper law enforcement agency.
All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content. Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and listen to Vi's original song, Take Me Back, written for Molly Miller.